Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, not just as observers, but as active participants in one of history's most dramatic moments. Imagine waking up in a sun-drenched Roman villa, the scent of baking bread wafting in from the streets, the gentle clatter of a distant cart on cobblestones, and the murmur of early morning chatter. You stretch, feeling the cool linen against your skin, and for a fleeting moment, everything feels utterly normal, blissfully ignorant of the cataclysm brewing just a few miles away. This isn't just a story, it's your story, and let's be honest, you probably won't survive this one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling chatty, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to the soft, diffused light filtering through a small, high window. It's early, but the city of Pompeii is already stirring. The air, usually crisp with the promise of a warm Mediterranean day, feels different. There's a subtle heaviness, a peculiar stillness that you can't quite place. You swing your legs over the edge of your lectus, the low Roman bed, and your bare feet meet the cool mosaic floor. The patterns beneath your toes are a familiar comfort, intricate geometric designs that have been there for decades, perhaps even centuries. As you stand, a faint vibration shivers through the floorboards, a tremor so slight you almost dismiss it as your imagination, or perhaps just a heavily laden cart passing by in the street below. But it's not quite a cart. It's too deep, too resonant. You move towards the open courtyard, the atrium, where the morning light now streams in, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The small impluvium, designed to catch rainwater, is calm, reflecting the deep blue of the sky above, but the reflections seem to waver just a touch more than usual. A bird chirps tentatively from a potted plant, then falls silent, almost as if listening. You brush a hand through your hair, noticing a fine, almost imperceptible grit on your fingertips. Strange. You haven't swept the courtyard yet, but this feels newer than typical dust. As you pad across the atrium, your mind, still half asleep, tries to reconcile these small anomalies with the usual rhythm of your Pompeian life. You recall a conversation from a few days ago, a neighbor grumbling about the persistent rumbling from the mountain, Vesuvius, which usually sits so serenely in the distance. He'd joked about it being the gods having a particularly lively argument, but there was a flicker of genuine concern in his eyes. Historians still argue whether the Pompeians fully understood the true nature of Vesuvius, seeing it more as a benign landmark than a ticking time bomb. Most simply lived their lives, accustomed to the occasional tremor, considering them a normal part of life in the shadow of the great peak. After all, it hadn't truly erupted in living memory, or even for centuries before that. The idea of a volcano as an active, destructive force was probably as alien to them as space travel is to us, just a distant, theoretical concept from some dusty scroll. You chuckle inwardly. They didn't have Netflix to binge-watch disaster documentaries, did they? You reach for a simple tunic, pulling it over your head. The fabric is a bit scratchy, a reminder that even in a bustling city like Pompeii, life wasn't always silk and roses. You consider popping down to the pastrinum later for some fresh bread, the smell of which is now definitely reaching your nostrils, mingling with something else, something sharper, like faint sulfur. You shrug it off. Perhaps the local fuller, who used interesting methods to clean clothes, was particularly active this morning. Or maybe it was just a strange drift in the wind. The world outside beckons, the hum of the city slowly rising to meet the dawn. You tie your sandals, feeling the leather straps familiar against your skin, and prepare to step into another ordinary Pompeian day. The tremor from earlier is already fading from memory, just a fleeting whisper in the quiet morning. You step out into the fosses, the narrow entranceway of your home, and the sounds and smells of Pompeii immediately envelop you. The street, usually bustling by this hour, seems a touch quieter, as if the city itself is holding its breath. The air, though, still carries that peculiar, faint sulphurous tang, now mixed with the more familiar sense of wood smoke from morning fires, the sweet aroma of ripening figs from a nearby stall, and the unmistakable, slightly sharp smell of stale wine lingering from last night's revelries. A dog barks once, sharply, then whimpers, a sound that strikes you as unusually forlorn for the normally boisterous canines of Pompeii. Your destination is the public baths, the thermae, a daily ritual for many Pompeians, including yourself. It's a chance to cleanse, socialize, and catch up on the latest gossip. As you walk, your sandals slapping softly on the uneven cobblestones, you notice fewer people heading in the same direction. The usual stream of early risers, eager for a refreshing dip before the heat of the day truly set in, is conspicuously thin. Perhaps everyone slept in, you muse, or perhaps they're all just feeling a bit under the weather. You pass by a taberna, a small shop, where the proprietor is meticulously arranging amphorae of oil and wine. He glances up, his brow furrowed, and gives you a terse nod, rather than his usual cheerful greeting. His eyes, though, keep darting towards the distant outline of Vesuvius, partially obscured by the rooftops, as if seeking an answer to some unspoken question. You follow his gaze, but the mountain appears as it always does, a vast, green-clad behemoth, peaceful and enduring. A slight shudder runs through the ground beneath your feet, more pronounced this time than the earlier tremor. It's enough to make the amphorae in the taberna clink softly against each other, a sound like ghostly wind chimes. You almost stumble, catching yourself on a nearby wall, its plaster surprisingly warm to the touch. You notice cracks, tiny hairline fractures, spiderwebbing across the ancient stucco, more numerous than you remember from yesterday. Interesting, you think, some serious ground settling must be happening. Maybe the building inspector, if they even had such a thing, was slacking off. As you continue your walk, you pass by a grand villa with a magnificent garden. Usually, the air here would be filled with the buzz of bees and the fragrant perfume of roses. Today, however, an eerie silence hangs over it, and you see no gardeners tending to the elaborate topiary. Even the usually vibrant frescoes on the outer walls seem to have lost some of their luster, perhaps just a trick of the strange light. Historians still argue whether the frequency of earthquakes truly increased significantly in the days leading up to the eruption, or if the subtle signs were simply overlooked by a populace accustomed to a certain level of seismic activity. For you, now, it's just a growing sense of unease, a feeling that something is off. You reach the entrance of the baths. The air inside is warm and humid, as expected, but the usual lively chatter and splashing sounds are muted. Only a few patrons are present, moving slowly through the various chambers. The mosaic floor in the frigidarium, the cold room, feels oddly gritty underfoot, almost as if fine sand has been sprinkled across it. You rub your toe against it, and a tiny, almost invisible dust cloud puffs up. It's not the usual dirt from feet. It's something finer, something that feels alien. You decide to forego the full bathing ritual and instead head straight to the tepidarium, the warm room, just to relax for a moment. As you sink into the warm water, you notice small, almost imperceptible ripples on the surface, not from anyone moving, but as if the ground itself is breathing. A man nearby, his eyes closed in what looks like troubled contemplation, murmurs something about the earth groaning. You recall a peculiar tidbit from an old scroll you once skimmed. Some ancient Roman scholars believed earthquakes were caused by strong winds trapped in caverns beneath the earth, desperately trying to escape. A rather poetic, if entirely unscientific, explanation for the rumbling beneath your feet, wouldn't you say? You try to dismiss the growing apprehension, focusing instead on the warmth seeping into your muscles. But the subtle vibrations, like a distant, persistent drumbeat, are hard to ignore. This morning ritual, usually a source of calm, is laced with an unfamiliar tension. Refreshed, if not entirely at ease, you make your way out of the baths and towards the Forum, the heart of Pompeii's public life. The morning sun is higher now, casting long shadows and illuminating the vibrant frescoes that adorn many of the shops and homes. The smells are stronger too, a pungent mix of fish sauce, garlic, and the earthy aroma of fresh produce. Usually, this sensory assault is part of Pompeii's charm, a vibrant symphony of daily life. Today, it feels a little off-key. As you approach the bustling market square, the soundscape begins to shift. The typical roar of conversation, the shouts of vendors hawking their wares, and the bleating of livestock seem muted, punctuated by an odd, almost rhythmic thudding. You notice that fewer carts are rumbling past, and those that are moved with a strange urgency, their drivers urging their mules forward at an uncharacteristically brisk pace. You step into the forum, and the sheer scale of the space, usually a source of civic pride, feels overwhelming. The grand temples, dedicated to Jupiter, Apollo, and the city's other patron deities, stand tall, their columns reaching towards a sky that, despite the sun, seems to have a faint, bruised quality to it. You look up, trying to discern if it's just a trick of your eyes, or if a subtle haze is indeed beginning to obscure the distant peak of Vesuvius. The market stalls are still set up, brimming with colorful produce, glistening fish, and an array of textiles. But the energy is different. Vendors, usually boisterous and eager to haggle, are quieter, their eyes constantly darting upwards or towards the mountain. Shoppers, too, seem less interested in lingering, grabbing their necessities and moving on quickly. You see a woman drop a basket of pomegranates, and instead of scattering to pick them up, she simply stares at the ground, her face pale. No dramatic thud as they hit the ground, just a dull, heavy sound. Then you notice the animals. A flock of pigeons, usually strutting fearlessly among the feet of pedestrians, are huddled together on a high ledge, cooing nervously. A dog, a usually friendly stray that often begs for scraps near the butcher's stall, is cowering under a cart, whimpering softly. And then there are the horses. A stable hand is trying to calm a team of mules hitched to a wagon, but they are skittish, tossing their heads and whinnying with a high-pitched anxiety that sends a chill down your spine. They stamp their hooves, creating that rhythmic thudding you heard earlier, and you wonder if they're sensing something you can't. You recall a peculiar bit of lore you once heard, that animals can sense earthquakes hours, even days, before they happen. Perhaps there was something to those old wives' tales after all. You certainly didn't need a seismograph to know something was amiss if the local cat was trying to climb inside your tunic. A tremor, more forceful than any before, ripples through the ground. The columns of the surrounding buildings seem to sway imperceptibly, and a few small terracotta roof tiles clatter to the ground with sharp cracks. A collective gasp rises from the crowd, followed by a moment of stunned silence. Then, a babble of nervous chatter erupts. People exchange anxious glances, their eyes wide with a dawning comprehension. You overhear a man loudly proclaim that the earth is surely angry, while another, more pragmatic, mutters about loose foundations. Historians still argue about the level of scientific understanding the Romans had regarding seismic activity. Did they simply attribute it to divine displeasure? Or did some educated minds grasp the geological forces at play? For now, though, it feels distinctly like divine displeasure. You decide to cut short your market visit. The vibrant colors of the produce now seem stark against the muted reactions of the people. The smells of the market, once so inviting, now feel almost cloying in the thickening air. You quickly purchase a loaf of bread from a baker who seems more focused on the ceiling of his shop than on his customers, and head towards the edge of the forum, your senses on high alert. The atmosphere is shifting, morphing from merely unusual to overtly unsettling. The normal hum of Pompeian life is giving way to a nascent fear. Leaving the immediate bustle of the market, you find yourself on a slightly quieter side street, though the sense of unease from the forum clings to you like the fine dust now coating everything. The grand public buildings, usually centers of activity, feel strangely deserted. The basilica, where legal proceedings and business deals would typically be in full swing, is eerily quiet. You pass by a capona, a small inn, where the usual boisterous laughter and clinking of cups are notably absent. A few patrons sit outside, but their conversations are hushed, their eyes constantly scanning the horizon towards Vesuvius. You can now distinctly hear the whispers. It starts as a low murmur, then grows, traveling from one group of people to another like a spreading contagion. "Did you feel that?" someone asks, their voice barely above a whisper. "The gods are angry," another responds, crossing themselves nervously. "My neighbor's chickens haven't laid an egg in days," a woman frets, clinging to a basket. Such seemingly trivial details, yet they carry a weight of impending doom in the current atmosphere. You recall reading about how ancient societies often interpreted natural disasters as divine wrath, a way to make sense of the uncontrollable. It's almost quaint, in a terrifying kind of way. The ground shudders again, a more prolonged and deeper rumble than before. It feels as if a giant beast is stirring far beneath the earth, stretching its immense limbs. This time, the tremor is strong enough to make you instinctively brace yourself against a wall. A small piece of plaster detaches from an old building nearby, and crumbles onto the street with a soft thud. You notice more cracks in the walls around you, some appearing almost as if by magic in the instant the earth moved. People begin to trickle out of their homes and shops, not in a panic, but with a cautious curiosity, their faces etched with a shared apprehension. They gather in small knots, exchanging news and rumors, each story more exaggerated than the last. One man claims to have seen smoke issuing from Vesuvius, though when you squint at the distant mountain, it still appears calm, albeit veiled by that faint, unusual haze. Another swears that the water in his cistern has turned cloudy, while a third insists that the fish in the bay are behaving erratically, leaping from the water in desperation. You find yourself drawn into one of these impromptu gatherings. An old woman, her face a network of wrinkles, recounts tales of her grandmother, who spoke of a time when the mountain did stir, centuries ago, a story almost mythical in its retelling, dismissed by many as mere folklore. The air tasted like ash for days, she mutters, her eyes wide with memory. And the ground never stopped groaning. Historians still debate the extent to which memories of past eruptions were passed down through generations in Pompeii. Were these just cautionary tales, or were they genuine recollections of a dormant but deadly threat? For you, now, it sounds chillingly real. The sunlight, which had been so bright just an hour ago, now seems strangely diffused, as if shining through a thin, dirty veil. You look up, trying to pinpoint the source, but there's nothing obvious, just a subtle dimming of the world around you. A peculiar quiet descends periodically, an absence of the usual city sounds, replaced only by the nervous breathing of the gathered crowd and the distant, almost imperceptible rumble that seems to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. It's the kind of silence that amplifies every other sound, making a distant dog's bark sound like a cannon shot. You probably wouldn't get much sleep in this current environment, even with a comfy bed. A young boy, no older than 7, starts to cry, clinging to his mother's tunic. "Mama, what's happening?" he whimpers. His mother tries to soothe him, but her own voice trembles. "It's just the earth stretching, little one," she says, a forced cheerfulness in her tone that doesn't quite mask her fear. But everyone knows the earth doesn't usually stretch quite like this. The Forum, the very symbol of Pompeian stability and order, now feels like a stage set for an unfolding drama, where the curtain is slowly, inexorably, beginning to rise. The ground beneath your feet doesn't just tremble now, it writhes. Each tremor is stronger, longer, punctuated by deeper, guttural rumblings that seem to echo from the very core of the earth. You can almost feel the foundations of the city groaning in protest. The fine dust that settled everywhere earlier is now noticeably thicker, almost like a thin film, clinging to surfaces and subtly muting the vibrant colors of the frescoes and painted signs. The air itself feels heavy, charged with an inexplicable tension, making the simple act of breathing feel like an effort. You are now standing near a busy intersection, usually a cacophony of sound and movement. But the carts have stopped, their drivers attempting to calm their spooked animals, who whinny and paw at the ground with increasing agitation. People are no longer just whispering. Their voices are louder, tinged with genuine fear. You see a merchant frantically trying to secure his wares, his hands trembling as he ties down sacks of grain. Nearby, a woman clutches a small child, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrors your own growing apprehension. Suddenly, a violent shudder rips through the city. It's not a gentle sway. It's a sharp, jarring movement that throws you off balance. You stumble, grabbing onto a rough stone wall for support, your knuckles scraping against the ancient masonry. Across the street, a large terracotta pot, filled with blooming oleander, topples from a window ledge, shattering on the cobblestones below with a sharp crack, scattering petals and earth. More pieces of plaster, larger this time, flake off the walls of buildings, dusting the street with white debris. The air fills with the faint, gritty smell of pulverized rock. It's like the city is slowly disintegrating around you, brick by ancient brick. The architectural integrity of some structures is visibly compromised. You see a large crack spiderwebbing up the facade of a multi-story insula, an apartment building, the stone groaning audibly. People point, their faces pale, their murmurs growing into cries of alarm. A group of women near a public fountain shriek as the water in the basin sloshes violently, overflowing its rim. You recall a rather amusing, in hindsight, Roman myth about Vulcan, the god of fire and blacksmithing, having his forge beneath volcanoes. If this was his morning workout, he was clearly going for a personal best. A peculiar, almost acrid smell now mixes with the sulfurous tang, like burnt dust and something metallic. It's subtle, but undeniably present, stinging the back of your throat. You cough, trying to clear your lungs, but the feeling persists. You notice that the sky, once merely hazy, is now distinctly darker, a strange, muted gray that seems out of place for a midday summer. It's as if a massive, invisible cloud is beginning to roll in, slowly devouring the sun's light. A tremor hits again, stronger still. This one sends a palpable ripple through the ground. You see people fall to their knees, some crying out. A small statue of a household god, displayed in a niche above a doorway, tumbles out and shatters into fragments on the street. The ground feels unstable, like walking on a restless ship in a building storm. You try to remain steady, but your legs feel like jelly. Historians still argue whether the Pompeians had any effective disaster preparedness plans. Given their lack of understanding of volcanoes, it's unlikely they had evacuation drills or designated safe zones. Their response was probably more reactive, born of instinct and desperation, much like what you're experiencing now. The subtle signs of geological unrest have escalated into an undeniable crisis. The city, once so vibrant and self-assured, is now a stage for unfolding fear. You look around, at the panicked faces, the trembling buildings, the agitated animals, and a chilling thought begins to form. This isn't just an ordinary tremor. This is something far, far worse. The earth beneath Pompeii is not merely stretching. It is tearing itself apart. The midday sun, now a pale, anemic disk struggling to pierce through the increasingly ominous haze, offers no comfort. The air is thick with a palpable tension, punctuated by the growing frequency and intensity of the tremors. What began as subtle shivers has escalated into violent jolts, shaking the very foundations of Pompeii. The distant rumble, which you dismissed as a passing cart or some subterranean grumbling, is now a continuous, deep growl, a monstrous sound emanating directly from the mountain itself. You are thrown off balance again as a particularly fierce tremor strikes, causing the ground to lurch beneath you like a ship caught in a rogue wave. You manage to stay upright by grabbing onto a nearby column, its stone surface surprisingly cold despite the building heat of the day. Around you, people are no longer merely agitated. Panic is beginning to set in. A woman screams as a piece of masonry, larger than your fist, detaches from a building across the street and crashes onto the cobblestones, narrowly missing a fleeing child. The crack it leaves in the pavement seems to spread like a fresh wound. The beautiful frescoes that adorn the city's walls, usually so vibrant, now appear ghostly under the dimming light, their painted figures seeming to writhe as the walls shudder. Dust, fine and gray, rises from every crevice, coating everything in a grimy film. You cough, your throat feeling raw, and try to cover your mouth with the corner of your tunic, but it offers little protection. The air smells increasingly of sulfur and something else, something sharp and metallic, like rusted iron mixed with a strange, burnt earth scent. It's an odor that makes your stomach churn. The public spaces, which were once teeming with life, are now filled with a chaotic scramble. Merchants abandon their stalls, their precious wares left to the mercy of the shaking earth. Families, their faces etched with terror, are rushing through the streets, not knowing where to go, their cries mingling with the general cacophony of the city's distress. You see a gladiator, typically a figure of strength and composure, looking utterly bewildered as he tries to calm his horse, the magnificent animal bucking and rearing uncontrollably. You wonder if this is how a Roman chariot race felt if the track decided to become a trampoline. From a temple, you hear the ominous sound of stone grinding against stone, a deep, resonant groan that makes the hairs on your arms stand on end. Looking up, you see a significant crack appear in one of the temple's grand columns, a dark line bisecting the ancient stone. It's a chilling sight, a symbol of the city's defiance against the forces of nature, now clearly failing. Historians still argue about the exact sequence of events during the initial phases of the eruption, specifically how long the intense seismic activity lasted before the actual eruption. For you, it feels like an eternity, a relentless assault on your senses and your dwindling composure. The very atmosphere feels charged, electric. You feel a strange static cling to your skin, making your hair feel slightly raised. You notice that even the usually unflappable street vendors, who have seen everything, are now openly weeping, their businesses, their livelihoods, being torn apart before their eyes. The subtle signs are long gone. This is an undeniable crisis, escalating with terrifying speed. A particularly loud groan emanates from the direction of Vesuvius, a sound so deep it vibrates in your bones. It's not just an earthquake, it's something else, something far more primal. A wave of collective dread washes over the crowd. People turn their heads instinctively towards the mountain, as if drawn by an invisible thread. The silence that follows the groan is almost more terrifying than the noise, a brief, pregnant pause before the next inevitable tremor. You realize, with a sickening lurch in your stomach, that the comfortable, predictable world of Pompeii is gone, replaced by a nightmare unfolding in real time. The illusion of safety has shattered, leaving only stark, undeniable fear. The constant, deep rumbling has now reached a fever pitch, a terrifying crescendo that seems to emanate directly from the bowels of the earth. You can almost feel it in your teeth, a bone-vibrating resonance that's beyond anything you've ever experienced. Every building around you seems to sway, not gently, but with a violent, sickening lurch. The sky, which moments ago was merely hazy, has now taken on a distinctly yellowish-gray tint, an unhealthy pallor that makes the familiar cityscape look alien and menacing. The air is thick with dust and the acrid smell of sulfur, making each breath a gritty, burning struggle. You instinctively turn your gaze towards the source of this growing horror, Mount Vesuvius. For centuries, it has stood as a majestic, green-clad backdrop to Pompeian life, a silent guardian. Now, it is anything but silent. From its summit, not smoke, but a terrifying, dense plume of dark material is beginning to billow upwards. It's not a gentle wisp, it's a massive, churning column, like some grotesque, evil tree growing at an impossible speed, reaching for the heavens. At first, it's just dark, indistinguishable against the already darkening sky. But as it rises, it spreads, fanning out at its top, forming a shape eerily reminiscent of the Mediterranean pine trees that dot the landscape, a tall trunk, broadening into a flat, wide canopy. A collective, terrified gasp ripples through the scattered crowds still in the streets. People point, their fingers trembling, their voices choked with a dawning horror. The whispers have ceased. Now there are only screams, cries of panic, and frantic prayers to gods who seem to have abandoned them. You see a mother pulling her children close, shielding their eyes from the horrifying spectacle unfolding above the mountain. A lone donkey, left tied to a post, brays with an unnatural, piercing terror, its eyes rolling wildly. It's less a sound of an animal, and more a sound of pure, unadulterated fear. You wouldn't want to be in a Roman stable right now. It's probably louder than a rock concert. Small, hard pellets begin to rain down, stinging your skin. At first, you think it's just debris from the shaking buildings, but then you look up. They are light, porous stones, no bigger than your thumbnail, falling from the sky like an unholy hail. Pumice. You try to brush them off your tunic, but more keep falling, bouncing off the cobblestones with a faint, dry rattle. This isn't rain, it's the mountain spitting. The wind picks up, swirling the ash and dust already in the air, creating miniature, choking cyclones in the streets. The beautiful, orderly streets of Pompeii are rapidly descending into chaos. People are no longer just seeking shelter. They are attempting to flee, pushing and shoving, their desperate need to escape overriding any sense of civic order. Carts are overturned, their contents spilling onto the ground. Animals, now completely spooked, break free from their tethers and bolt wildly through the throngs of people, adding to the confusion and danger. The ground continues its relentless shaking, each tremor a reminder of the immense power unleashed. The air itself feels hot, despite the darkening sky. You can almost feel the heat radiating from the distant mountain, even though it's miles away. Historians still argue about the exact timing of the initial plume relative to the most severe earthquakes. For you, the connection is immediate and terrifying. The Earth's convulsions are directly linked to the monstrous column now piercing the sky. This isn't just a natural disaster. It's an apocalypse unfolding before your eyes, and the serene, dependable Vesuvius has revealed its true, destructive nature. The once picturesque landscape has become a stage for a nightmare, and you, along with every other soul in Pompeii, are trapped on it. The column of ash and pumice erupting from Vesuvius is no longer just a distant spectacle. It's a terrifying, undeniable reality. It has grown to a colossal size, towering miles into the sky, its base a churning, roiling mass of dark, incandescent material. The familiar blue of the sky is rapidly being consumed, replaced by a suffocating, ominous pall. What were once tiny, stinging pellets of pumice have now intensified into a relentless, heavier shower. They fall with a dry, relentless patter, like countless tiny pebbles striking the ground, accumulating rapidly on every surface. You can hear them now, the growing chorus of screams. Not just individual cries, but a collective wail of despair and terror rising from the city. People are stampeding through the streets, a desperate, surging tide of humanity. Mothers clutch their children, fathers try to lead their families, but there's no clear direction, just a desperate scramble away from the horrifying reality above. Overturned carts and abandoned belongings litter the cobblestones, forming treacherous obstacles in the desperate rush. The air is becoming incredibly difficult to breathe. The fine ash, now mixed with larger pieces of pumice, is everywhere. It stings your eyes, making them water uncontrollably, and fills your nostrils and mouth with a dry, gritty sensation. Each breath feels like inhaling dust from an old, forgotten tomb. You try to cover your mouth with your tunic, but it's futile. The air is thick with the stuff, a suffocating, gritty cloud that seems to cling to your lungs. You cough, a deep, rasping sound, your throat raw and burning. It's like trying to breathe inside a very enthusiastic, very dirty fireplace. The light continues to dim at an alarming rate. What was midday now feels like the deepest twilight, a strange, unnatural gloom descending over everything. The sun is completely obscured, and the only illumination comes from the faint, sickly glow of a few remaining street lamps or the flashes of lightning that now occasionally flicker within the monstrous ash cloud itself. These are not ordinary storm lightning. They are volcanic lightning, born of the friction of ash particles, a truly alien and terrifying sight. The weight of the falling pumice is becoming noticeable. It collects on rooftops, on awnings, on the branches of trees, creating a soft, shifting blanket of gray. You hear the ominous groans of timbers straining under the load, and every now and then, the crash of a roof collapsing, sending up a fresh plume of dust and debris. The sounds of the city are now a terrifying symphony of screams, the crackling of collapsing structures, and the relentless, dry hiss of falling pumice. You pass by a family attempting to shelter under an archway, their faces streaked with tears and ash, their hands clasped in fervent prayer. Their hope seems as fragile as the plaster now flaking from the walls. You recall a quirky historical tidbit. Some Pompeians apparently owned gliscolis, or edible dormice, which they fattened in special jars. You wonder if anyone is still trying to save their exotic pets, or if such small concerns have been swallowed by the overwhelming terror. Historians still argue about the precise moment when the citizens realized the scale of the disaster. Was it the ash, the lightning, or the growing darkness? For you, it's a terrifying, creeping realization, solidifying with every choking breath and every falling stone. The roar from Vesuvius is no longer just a rumble. It's a continuous, deafening bellow, a primal scream from the earth itself. It vibrates through your entire body, making your teeth rattle. This isn't a temporary inconvenience. This is an all-consuming force, erasing the familiar world piece by piece. The vibrant city of Pompeii, which moments ago felt so alive, is rapidly transforming into a landscape of ash, shadow, and desperate flight. There is no doubt now. This is the end of an era, perhaps the end of everything you know. The decision, if it can even be called a decision, is made for you by the sheer force of the terrifying spectacle unfolding. The relentless shower of pumice, now larger and heavier, clatters down like a hail of stones, making staying outside untenable. The air is so thick with ash and volcanic gas that each breath is a burning effort, and the darkness is so profound that you can barely see your hand in front of your face. Flee you must. But where? The city, your home, is becoming a death trap, minute by terrifying minute. You join the surging tide of desperate Pompeians, your legs burning, your lungs aching. There's no orderly procession. It's a frantic, every person for themselves scramble. You push past a bewildered old man, his eyes wide and unseeing. You sidestep a mother who has fallen, desperately trying to gather her crying child amidst the chaos. The cobblestone streets, once so familiar, are now treacherous, covered in a slick, shifting layer of ash and pumice, making every step a gamble. The sounds are overwhelming. The ceaseless roar of the mountain, now mixed with the groans of collapsing buildings, the screams of the trapped and injured, and the desperate, ragged breathing of the fleeing crowd. It's a symphony of pure, unadulterated terror. You stumble over something unseen in the deepening gloom, perhaps a fallen beam or an abandoned cart, scraping your knee. You hardly register the pain, your mind singularly focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on simply moving. You hear someone cry out, "The Stabian Gate," to the coast, and the cry is taken up by others, echoing through the suffocating darkness. It's a fleeting beacon of hope in the overwhelming despair, a potential escape route to the south, away from the roaring inferno of Vesuvius. You turn, pushing through the desperate throng, trying to orient yourself in the unnatural night. It's like trying to navigate a familiar room with your eyes closed, except the room is on fire and slowly collapsing around you. You hope the ancient Romans had better internal compasses than you do. The heat is becoming more intense, a dry, oppressive warmth that seems to bake the very air you breathe. It's not the heat of a normal summer day. It's a searing, unnatural warmth that radiates from the monstrous plume above. You feel sweat prickle on your skin, mixing with the fine ash that now coats every inch of your exposed flesh, turning you into a gray, ghostly figure. You pass by a lararium, a small household shrine, still adorned with faded paintings of household gods. A small lamp flickers feebly inside, casting dancing shadows on the trembling walls, a poignant, almost defiant gesture of faith in the face of utter destruction. You wonder if anyone still believes the gods are listening. Historians still argue about the number of people who attempted to flee Pompeii versus those who sought shelter. Some studies suggest a significant portion tried to escape, while others indicate many remained, perhaps hoping the worst would pass. For you, flight is the only option, a primal instinct overriding all else. A large piece of pumice, perhaps the size of a pigeon's egg, strikes your shoulder with surprising force, a dull thud followed by a sharp sting. It's a stark reminder that even as you run, the sky itself is a weapon. The air is getting thinner, choked with fine particles, making your lungs burn with every gasping breath. You feel a growing sense of claustrophobia, as if the entire world is pressing down on you. The familiar world of Pompeii, with its vibrant colors and bustling life, has vanished, replaced by a monochrome landscape of ash, fear, and desperate, gasping flight. There is no turning back, only forward, into the deepening gloom and towards an uncertain escape. The relentless, dry hiss of falling ash is now the dominant sound, a constant, pervasive whisper that threatens to drown out even your own frantic thoughts. The pumice, which was once an annoyance, is now building up rapidly, forming drifts that make every step a monumental effort. It's like running through deep, dry snow, but a snow that burns your eyes and chokes your throat. The air, already thick with volcanic debris, is becoming heavier, hotter, and even more suffocating. You can feel the weight of it, pressing down on your chest, making your lungs ache with every shallow, desperate gasp. Visibility is almost zero. The monstrous cloud from Vesuvius has completely blotted out the sun, plunging Pompeii into an unnatural, absolute darkness, a blackness deeper than any moonless night. You can barely make out the shapes of the buildings around you, and the terrified faces of those around you are mere ghostly blurs, streaked with gray ash. The only light comes from the terrifying, incandescent flashes of lightning still crackling within the ash cloud far above, briefly illuminating the horrific scene below like a strobe light on a very bad disco night. You certainly wouldn't be doing the Macarena in this situation. The falling ash is not just a nuisance anymore. It's a physical burden. It clings to your hair, your clothes, turning you into a walking, coughing silhouette. The fine particles work their way into every crevice, every fold of your tunic, making your skin itch and burn. You can feel it in your mouth, a gritty paste that makes swallowing difficult, and your throat is raw from the constant coughing. It's like being trapped inside a giant, dust-filled hourglass, and the sand is rapidly running out. You stumble again, falling to your knees in the accumulating ash, which is now several inches deep in places. The pumice stones, rough and sharp, dig into your hands as you try to push yourself up. Panic threatens to overwhelm you. To lie here, to give up, would be so easy. But the sheer will to survive, that primal urge, forces you back to your feet. You must keep moving. The sounds of collapsing roofs are now more frequent, sharp cracks followed by dull, heavy thuds, sending up fresh plumes of dust and debris. These aren't just distant noises. They are happening disturbingly close. You hear the terrified screams of those trapped beneath the falling masonry, sounds that will haunt your nightmares if you live to have them. Historians still debate the rate of ashfall and pumice accumulation during the initial phase of the eruption. For you, it feels impossibly fast, as if the mountain is actively trying to bury the city alive. You try to call out, to ask for directions, to find out if anyone else is still heading towards the Stabian Gate, but your voice is a dry, ragged whisper, swallowed by the roar of the mountain and the hiss of the falling ash. The sense of isolation, even amidst the fleeing crowd, is profound. Each person is in their own desperate struggle for survival, a lonely battle against an unstoppable force. A particularly violent tremor shakes the ground, sending a wave of fresh terror through the remaining, scattered groups of people. This one feels different, a more violent side-to-side motion, almost as if the earth itself is convulsing in agony. You hear the distant, ominous groan of a larger building giving way, a sound that resonates with finality. The relentless descent of ash and pumice, combined with the deepening darkness, creates a terrifying, inescapable trap. The once vibrant city is being steadily erased, consumed by the very dust it stands upon. You are no longer merely witnessing history. You are caught within its most destructive chapter, struggling to breathe, struggling to move, struggling just to survive the suffocating descent of the ashfall. The Stabian Gate, you hope, is still ahead, a faint promise of escape in the oppressive, ash-choked darkness. Every step is an arduous battle, your feet sinking into the ever-deepening drifts of pumice and ash. It's like wading through thick, gritty water, but instead of cooling, it radiates a dry, stifling heat. The city's familiar landmarks are gone, swallowed by the unnatural gloom and the accumulating debris. You navigate by instinct, by the faint, muffled sounds of other desperate souls ahead, and by the desperate, guttural roars of Vesuvius guiding you like a terrifying beacon. The air is a physical presence now, a thick, abrasive medium that chafes your throat and burns your lungs with every gasping breath. The sulfuric tang is more pronounced, mixed with the sharp, metallic smell of fresh ash and something else, something acrid and strangely sweet, like burning bone. You cough, a dry, racking cough that leaves you breathless and dizzy. Your eyes stream with tears, not just from the grit, but from the sheer terror of it all. You can almost taste the desperation in the air, a metallic tang of fear. You stumble over what feels like a discarded amphora, then another, then what might be a fallen statue. The street is a chaotic obstacle course of debris, abandoned belongings, and perhaps, tragically, fallen bodies. You try not to think about what you might be treading upon, focusing instead on the burning in your legs, the pounding in your chest, and the sheer, desperate need to simply keep moving. The sheer futility of saving anything but your own life is starkly apparent. You certainly weren't going to grab your best gladius or your favorite toga on the way out. The darkness is absolute. The volcanic lightning flashes above, briefly illuminating the horrific scene like a monstrous camera flash, revealing glimpses of twisted columns, collapsed roofs, and the terrifying, ghostly figures of other escapees, their faces streaked with gray ash, their eyes wide with terror. In those fleeting moments, you see the true scale of the devastation, a city being actively consumed. And then, just as quickly, the darkness returns, even more profound than before. The sounds are a constant assault. The ceaseless roar of the mountain, the dull thud of falling pumice, the splintering crashes of collapsing buildings, and the occasional, heart-stopping shriek of someone falling or becoming trapped. You hear the distinct, terrifying crack of a large beam giving way nearby, followed by a rush of displaced air and a heavy, final thump. You quicken your pace, despite the burning in your lungs, desperate to put as much distance as possible between yourself and the crumbling city. You pass by what must have been a public fountain. The water, instead of flowing, is now a stagnant, muddy puddle, thick with ash and debris. A bird, probably disoriented by the darkness, flutters wildly against a nearby wall before falling to the ground with a soft thud, its life extinguished by the suffocating air. A peculiar, almost chilling detail, but one that underscores the lethality of the atmosphere. Historians still argue about how quickly the ashfall became lethal. Was it hours, or was it a more prolonged, suffocating process? For you, it feels like an eternity of slow, agonizing suffocation, each breath a struggle against the very air itself. Your legs feel heavy, like lead. Your muscles scream in protest. The desperate cries from behind you seem to fade, replaced by the relentless, all-encompassing hiss of the ash. You focus on the idea of the gate, the narrow opening in the wall, the chance for open air, for escape. It's the only thing driving you forward now, a tiny, flickering flame of hope in an otherwise utterly black and ash-filled world. The city of Pompeii is dying around you, and you are desperately, hopelessly running for your life. You push forward, each breath a searing, painful gasp. The air around you is no longer just dusty. It's a superheated, noxious blend of volcanic gases and fine ash, almost solid in its density. It stings your eyes, burns your nostrils, and scratches at the back of your throat with every shallow inhalation. You can taste the sulfur, a sharp, metallic tang that coats your tongue, making you gag. It's like breathing in the fiery breath of a dragon, if dragons were made of pulverized rock and toxic fumes. You certainly wouldn't want to light a campfire here. The air itself feels combustible. The darkness is absolute, a thick, impenetrable blackness that defies description. You are running blind, guided only by the distant, monstrous roar of Vesuvius and the desperate sounds of others fleeing, their ragged coughs, and cries a chilling chorus in the gloom. The volcanic lightning flashes above are fewer now, perhaps because the ash cloud is too dense even for that incredible energy. This makes the darkness even more terrifying, a tangible, suffocating presence that presses in from all sides. The ground beneath your feet is treacherous. The accumulating ash and pumice have created an unstable, shifting surface, sometimes several feet deep. You stumble over unseen obstacles, fallen debris, perhaps even bodies. The sensation of sinking into the hot, gritty material with every step is exhausting, draining what little strength you have left. Your legs feel like lead, and your muscles scream in protest with every strained movement. A wave of heat washes over you, dry and searing, distinct from the already stifling air. It's as if an invisible oven door has opened nearby, radiating an intense, baking warmth. This isn't the heat of a summer day. It's the heat of the Earth's molten core making its presence felt. It saps your remaining energy, making your head light and your movements sluggish. You feel a strange burning sensation on your exposed skin, almost like a mild sunburn, but infinitely more oppressive. You hear the horrifying sounds of people around you struggling, choking. A cough turns into a gasp, then a strangled sob, then silence. The air is lethal. The fine ash particles are not just irritating. They are entering your lungs, mixing with the moisture there to create a kind of cement, slowly suffocating you from the inside out. This isn't just about avoiding falling rocks. It's about not being able to breathe. Historians still argue about the precise cause of death for the majority of Pompeii's victims. Was it suffocation from ash, the heat from pyroclastic flows, or a combination of factors? For you, in this moment, it is undeniably the air itself, slowly killing you. You pass by a fountain, but the water in its basin is now boiling, sending up wisps of steam that vanish almost immediately into the suffocating gloom. It's a surreal sight, a stark testament to the unimaginable heat now permeating the city. A small, trapped bird, disoriented and desperate, flutters wildly against a nearby wall before falling to the ground, a silent casualty of the toxic atmosphere. Your chest heaves, each breath a desperate attempt to draw life-giving oxygen into lungs that feel increasingly constricted. You focus on the idea of the Stabian Gate, of escape, of fresh air, but the hope feels increasingly distant, a faint flicker against the overwhelming darkness and the suffocating, deadly air. This is no longer merely an escape from falling ash. It is a desperate, agonizing race against the very air you breathe, a struggle for survival against an invisible, suffocating enemy. Pompeii is now a gas chamber, and you are trapped within its deadly embrace. The roar from Vesuvius intensifies, a guttural, earth-shattering bellow that feels less like a sound and more like a physical force. It's no longer just the deep rumble you've become accustomed to. It's a terrifying, all-encompassing shriek, filled with the sound of grinding rock and rushing air. The air around you, already suffocating, suddenly seems to thicken further, becoming impossibly hot, searing your lungs with every desperate intake. Then, through the absolute blackness, you feel it. A rush of air, incredibly hot, hits you from behind, carrying with it a new, terrifying scent, the smell of scorched earth, superheated rock, and something indescribably foul, like burnt flesh and dust. It's an indescribable, overwhelming heat, instantly drying out your eyes and mouth. This isn't a gentle breeze. It's the leading edge of something enormous, something that moves with impossible speed, consuming everything in its path. You try to turn, to look, but your body is sluggish, heavy with exhaustion and the suffocating air. Panic, raw and unadulterated, surges through you. This isn't the ashfall. This is something far more deadly. You hear it before you truly understand it, a horrifying, guttural roar, like 1,000 furnaces emptying all at once, growing louder, closer, with terrifying rapidity. It's the sound of the pyroclastic flow, a superheated cloud of volcanic gas, ash, and rock fragments, hurtling down the slopes of Vesuvius at unimaginable speed. It's the very breath of the mountain, and it's coming for you. You realize, with a sickening lurch, that this isn't the kind of heat you can just fan away. It's the heat that reduces everything to ash. The darkness intensifies, becoming a tangible wall. The air becomes even more difficult to breathe, each gulp of that burning, toxic atmosphere feeling like a blade in your lungs. You try to run faster, but your legs are screaming, your muscles seizing up from exhaustion and the lack of oxygen. The ground beneath your feet vibrates violently, not from individual tremors, but from the sheer, immense force of the approaching cloud. It's like the world itself is being torn apart. You stumble again, falling forward onto the ash-covered street, your hands instinctively rising to shield your face from the unbearable heat. The air is so hot it feels like your skin is blistering, even through your tunic. You can hear the horrifying screams of those around you, closer now, then abruptly cut short as the superheated cloud engulfs them. It's a sound that will forever haunt the echoes of this city, terrified cries ending in instant, horrific silence. You probably don't want to think about the physics of that. You can sense the sheer density of the flow now, a wall of incandescent death rushing towards you. It feels like a physical punch, an immense pressure, as if the very air is being violently displaced. The light, if there was any left, would be completely consumed by this monstrous wave. Historians still argue about the number of pyroclastic surges and their specific paths. For you, it's just one overwhelming, all-consuming wave of destruction, an unstoppable force of nature. A final, desperate gasp. Your lungs burn, your eyes are seared, and the heat is all-consuming. There is no escape now, no running faster, no hiding. The roar is deafening, the heat unbearable, the darkness absolute. The pyroclastic flow is not just approaching. It is here, a monstrous, incandescent wave that sweeps over everything in its path, erasing the city, its people, and all traces of life in an instant. This is the moment of finality, the ultimate, terrifying embrace of Vesuvius. The world has become a roaring, scorching, suffocating void. There is no distinction between air and ash, between ground and sky, only the overwhelming, incandescent embrace of the pyroclastic flow. The heat is beyond anything imaginable, instantly vaporizing moisture, searing skin, and reducing everything to cinders. It's not just hot, it's a dry, all-consuming inferno that leaves no trace. Your very being feels as though it is being consumed, not slowly, but in a single, annihilating flash. In those fleeting, final moments, your senses are overwhelmed. The roar of the flow is so deafening it's no longer a sound, but a vibration that rattles your very bones, a physical assault that obliterates all other thought. The darkness is absolute, not just the absence of light, but a thick, opaque blanket of superheated ash that presses in from all sides, a crushing, suffocating weight. You can't see, you can't hear, you can barely feel anything beyond the agonizing, all-encompassing heat. The air, or what little remains of it, is instantly sucked from your lungs, replaced by the toxic, superheated volcanic gases. It's not a struggle for breath, it's an immediate, impossible void where oxygen once was. Your muscles seize, not from exertion, but from the shock of the immense heat and the instant vacuum. It's a sudden, complete cessation of function, like a complex machine abruptly losing all its power. You certainly won't be complaining about the humidity in Taiyuan ever again after this. You feel a final, overwhelming pressure, as if the entire weight of the mountain has descended upon you. It's the impact of the dense, fast-moving flow, a physical force that sweeps away everything in its path, embedding bodies and objects in the rapidly solidifying ash. There is no time for pain, no time for regret, no time for a final thought. Just an instantaneous, complete obliteration. The world, as you know it, ceases to exist in that terrifying, final instant. The city of Pompeii, once so vibrant and alive, is now a tomb. The beautiful frescoes, the bustling markets, the grand villas, the public baths, all are buried beneath feet, then meters of volcanic debris. The intricate mosaic floors, the marble statues, the everyday objects of Roman life, they are all preserved, not by design, but by the very forces that destroyed them. The terrifying pyroclastic flow, while annihilating all life, simultaneously created an airtight, instant cast of everything it touched, trapping the city in a moment of suspended animation. Historians still argue about the precise temperature of the pyroclastic flows and their exact impact on human tissue. The horrifying discovery of the voids, the empty spaces in the solidified ash where bodies once lay, allowing archaeologists to cast the final agonized postures of the victims, stands as a stark testament to the unimaginable speed and lethality of the flow. For the people of Pompeii, this was not a slow decay. It was an instant, cataclysmic transformation from life to eternal stasis. There is no more running, no more struggling, no more breathing. There is only the crushing weight of the ash, the searing heat, and then nothing. The sounds of screams, the roar of the mountain, the hiss of the ashfall, all are silenced, replaced by an eerie, profound stillness. The city, once full of life, is now utterly, completely silent, a monument to the devastating power of nature. It's a silence that stretches across nearly 2 millennia, waiting to be disturbed. The overwhelming roar has faded, replaced by an eerie, profound silence. The searing heat, the suffocating ash, the crushing darkness, all have settled into a chilling stillness. Pompeii, the vibrant, bustling Roman city, is gone, buried, lost beneath a vast, desolate blanket of volcanic debris. What remains is a landscape utterly transformed, a vast, gray, undulating plain where thriving streets and grand villas once stood. The air, though no longer actively toxic, is heavy, laden with the lingering smell of sulfur and cold, damp ash. Above, the monstrous pine tree cloud has dissipated, leaving behind a sky that, in the days and weeks that follow, will gradually begin to clear, revealing a sun that shines down on a scene of unimaginable devastation. The once fertile slopes of Vesuvius are now barren and scarred, a stark reminder of the immense power unleashed. The surrounding towns and countryside, too, bear the marks of the eruption, though none as complete and devastating as Pompeii. You can almost feel the silence ringing in your ears, a monumental hush that has fallen over the entire region. It's the kind of quiet that makes you feel very, very small. For centuries, Pompeii remains hidden, swallowed by the earth, a forgotten tragedy. The very dust that destroyed it also preserved it, creating an accidental time capsule. Life moves on around its buried remains. New civilizations rise and fall. History unfolds, oblivious to the perfectly preserved city beneath their feet. Farmers might till the ashen-rich soil, unaware of the vibrant world just inches below. It's almost like a Roman version of a giant, unintentional archaeological dig, except no one knew it was there. The discovery, nearly 1,700 years later, is accidental, a fluke of engineering. Workers digging a canal unearth ancient walls, statues, and then, astonishingly, perfectly preserved human forms. These aren't just skeletons, they are plaster casts of the final, agonizing moments, capturing the terror and desperation of the victims as the pyroclastic flows engulf them. It's a sobering, poignant reminder of the lives that ended so abruptly on that fateful day. Historians still debate the ethical implications of displaying these casts. Is it respectful to those who perished, or is it a morbid curiosity? Regardless, they serve as an undeniable, visceral link to that terrible day. Pompeii's legacy is immense, a window into the daily life of the Roman Empire, frozen in time. The graffiti on the walls, the loaves of bread still in ovens, the unmade beds, the tools in workshops, they all tell a story of a vibrant, ordinary existence suddenly, violently interrupted. It allows us to walk in the footsteps of those who lived and died there, to imagine their hopes, their fears, their mundane routines, and their final moments. It's a reminder of humanity's fragility in the face of nature's power, and of our remarkable ability to rebuild and remember. The story of Pompeii is not just one of destruction. It's one of preservation, a testament to the raw, untamed forces of our planet. It stands as a stark warning and a source of endless fascination. It reminds us that even in a seemingly stable world, the earth beneath our feet is a living, breathing entity, capable of both creation and unimaginable destruction. For you, the experience of being there, of feeling the ground shake, of breathing the ash, of witnessing the sky turn black, will forever be seared into your memory, a terrifying echo of a day that changed everything for a city on the Bay of Naples. The silence has deepened now, the lingering echoes of the eruption fading into the vast expanse of time. The images of ash and fire soften, replaced by the gentle darkness of your room. The urgency of escape dissipates, leaving behind only the quiet hum of the night. Feel the reassuring presence of your own bed beneath you, the familiar rhythm of your breath. The ancient dust of Pompeii has settled, and with it, the story closes. Rest easy now. Let the sounds of the night soothe you, wrapping you in a peaceful embrace. The distant past is just that, distant. You are safe, here and now, drifting into the soft currents of sleep. Let your mind clear, letting go of the tremors and the ash. Just the quiet hum, just the gentle breath.